Welcome to the deep dive. So maybe you're a single parent thinking about dating, maybe you're dating one, or maybe you're just curious. We're going to try and give you a quick rundown today.
Yeah, like a real concise look at the essentials.
Think of it as the highlight reel, maybe? The core stuff you need to grasp.
Exactly. Because, let's be honest, dating's tricky enough. Add kids, maybe an ex, schedules. Our source calls it a complex, chaotic, often illogical dance.
Huh. Yeah, that sounds about right. And being a single parent just adds, well, more steps to that dance, more complexity.
For sure.
So our mission here today is really just to pull out the key insights, give you that snapshot of what it's really like based on some pretty direct material we've looked at.
Some surprising truths in there, too, I think.
Definitely. Okay, so ready to dive in? Where should we start? Maybe with some of the stuff people just assume.
Yeah, let's tackle those common myths first. The source calls them garbage beliefs, which is pretty blunt.
Okay, strong start. What's the first one?
Well, the big one. Your kids should always come first. No.
It sounds like the right thing, the only responsible thing to say, like ultimate self-sacrifice.
It does, but the source pushes back on that a bit. It's not saying your kids aren't a massive priority. Obviously they are.
Of course.
But it argues that you, as a person, still have needs. And maybe suppressing those needs completely isn't actually the best thing for your kids long term.
Okay. How so? What's the thinking there?
Well, the idea is that emotionally fulfilled parents tend to raise more emotionally stable kids. It's about modeling healthy relationships, setting boundaries. That's valuable stuff for kids to see.
Right, so it's not purely selfish to want your own adult life and connections. It actually feeds back into your parenting.
Exactly. It's like showing them what a balanced adult looks like, gives them a better roadmap, you know?
That definitely reframes it.
Okay.
Okay, what's another myth?
The idea of just waiting. Putting your love life completely on ice until the kids are like 18 or out of the house.
Yeah, I can see people feeling like that's the only option sometimes. It feels overwhelming otherwise.
Sure, but the source is pretty direct here. It's like, are you really going to pause a whole part of your life for maybe, what, 10, 15, 20 years? When you put it like that.
Yeah. It's less about when and more about how. How can you date consciously and intentionally now, rather than just delaying indefinitely?
Finding ways to make it work within your current life, not waiting for some perfect future moment that might never come.
Precisely.
Okay. And then there's that big fear, the one I imagine is huge for single parents.
No one will want to date someone with kids.
Yeah, that must feel really daunting.
It must. But, I mean, statistically, it's just not true, is it? People date and form relationships with single parents.
Right.
But the source has this interesting take. It says, having kids can actually be a really effective bullshit detector.
Huh.
Okay, explain that.
Well, it weeds people out quickly, right? If someone is immediately scared off by the fact you have kids, they probably weren't ready for the kind of commitment or maturity you might be looking for anyway.
That's a really sharp point. It's like an upfront filter for seriousness, or maybe just like life readiness.
So those are some big mindset shifts. Now, what about the internal experience? The source talks about something called split self syndrome.
Okay, split self syndrome. Sounds intense. What does that mean?
It's basically describing this constant tension, right, between the caregiver self totally focused on the kids, their needs, safety, lunches, all that.
The default mode, probably.
Yeah. And then the romantic self, the part that craves adult company, intimacy, maybe romance, sex.
And those two selves are often pulling in opposite directions.
Pretty much. Imagine trying to switch from, like, negotiating bedtime rules to feeling flirty for a date. It's like running two different programs that aren't always compatible.
Yeah, that sounds exhausting. Constantly code switching in your own head.
Totally. And the source mentions the guilt that can come with that. Feeling guilty when you're focusing on dating, like you're neglecting the kids.
Or feeling maybe awkward or out of place when you're dating because your world is just so different now.
Exactly. And apparently there's some research suggesting single parents can sometimes struggle with self-concept clarity after becoming a parent, that huge identity shift.
So feeling a bit lost or unsure in the dating world is actually pretty normal in this situation.
It seems so. And this whole juggling act, the split feeling, it gets amplified by one really concrete thing.
Let me guess. Time.
Bingo. The sheer lack of it.
Right. Because it's not just your schedule anymore. It's kids' schedules, school, activities, maybe coordinating with a co-parent.
Childcare logistics. Yeah. That simple, hey, I want to grab a drink after work becomes a major plan operation.
Finding a sitter, making sure everyone's fed and settled. It's a whole production.
It really is. So acknowledging the time crunch is one thing, but how do you actually deal with it?
Yeah, because saying I'm busy doesn't magically create dating opportunity.
No. But the source offers a pretty cool practical idea, the microdate.
Microdate. Okay, I like the sound of that. Less intimidating.
Right. It's about finding those small pockets of time, like a quick coffee during your lunch break, a walk in the park while the kids are doing something else, even just a focused video chat after they're asleep.
So short, focused bursts of connection instead of waiting for a whole free evening.
Exactly. It shifts the mindset.
Yeah,
Meaningful connection can happen in those smaller windows, makes dating feel less like another giant thing to schedule.
that's really smart. Takes the pressure off. Okay, so you managed to find some time. The source also says your priorities in who you're looking for tend to change, right?
Oh, massively. There's this realignment. Things like, I don't know, good vibes or killer jawline, they tend to slide down the list.
And what moves up?
Things like emotional maturity, reliability, huge one, patience. Suddenly, someone who gets it when you have to cancel last minute because a kid is sick, that becomes incredibly attractive.
Huh. Yeah, dependability definitely gets a promotion. You need someone steady when your life already has built-in unpredictability.
Totally. And there was that quote you mentioned earlier from a single mom. Something like,
He doesn't need to love my child yet, but he has to respect that they exist. Yeah, that really nails it, doesn't it?
it absolutely does. That baseline of respect for your reality is non-negotiable. Which leads us nicely into maybe the trickiest part.
Introducing a new partner to the kids.
Yeah, that feels like high stakes.
Definitely. You're protective. You don't want to cause disruption or confusion.
Mm-hmm.
But you also can't keep someone important hidden forever if things get serious.
Exactly. And the source warns against a few common pitfalls, like introducing every person you go on a few dates with as mommy's special friend or daddy's buddy.
Right, the revolving door of friends. That can't be good.
No, or the opposite extreme, waiting months and months into a serious relationship before they even meet. That can be weird too.
So is there a sweet spot, a Goldilocks zone, as the source puts it?
Yeah, it suggests somewhere around maybe 2 to 3 months of consistent, exclusive dating seems about right for many.
Okay. And that's after you've had the important talks about values, intentions, where things are going.
Yes, definitely. You need to feel there's real potential and emotional investment there. And the first meeting, keep it super low-key.
Like meet for ice cream, not a week-long vacation.
Exactly. Brief, casual, low pressure. And crucially, you got to gauge your kid's readiness too. It's not just your timeline.
Makes sense. It's their world you're potentially bringing someone into. Another piece of the puzzle, the X.
Ah, the X factor.
Yeah.
Yeah, that can definitely add spice, drama.
A little bit of everything, probably.
The co-parenting dynamic obviously plays a huge role. Is it amicable? Is it high conflict? That ripples into your dating life.
And how you feel about your ex, even if you think you're over it, can impact new relationships too.
For sure. And the source points out a red flag in potential dates, someone who just constantly trashes their own ex.
Ooh, oh, yeah. That usually signals they haven't moved on, right?
Right.
Or they lack accountability.
Probably. So the advice is, be transparent about your co-parenting situation, set clear boundaries, and please don't use dates to try and make your ex jealous.
People still do that. Wow, okay. Moving on to maybe a sensitive topic, but an important one, sex and intimacy.
Right. The source tackles this head on. It acknowledges things can feel different after having kids.
How so?
Well, bodies change, time is limited, obviously. Privacy can be a real issue.
Trying to find a moment when you're not going to be interrupted.
Exactly. Plus, there can be guilt, anxieties about body image. It's layered.
But what's the core message?
Basically, a controversial truth, as the source puts it. Being a good parent and having good sex, or just wanting intimacy, are not mutually exclusive.
Okay, so wanting and pursuing pleasure doesn't make you a bad parent.
Not at all. It makes you human. It's about normalizing that desire, even while acknowledging the practical challenges, like the sudden cry from the baby monitor.
The ultimate mood killer. Right. Okay, so we've looked inside, looked at logistics. What about the people you're actually dating? Is it better to date other single parents or people without kids?
The source lays out pros and cons for both, really.
Okay, let's hear them. Single parents first.
The big pro. Mutual understanding, they just get it. The schedule chaos, the kid-centric world, the last-minute changes, there's built-in empathy.
Less explaining needed.
Exactly. The con, you might be doubling the logistical complexity. 2 sets of kids, 2 sets of schedules, maybe 2 sets of exes.
Right. Could get complicated fast.
Mm-hmm.
And dating someone without kids?
Pro. Maybe a bit more spontaneity, a different kind of energy potentially. The focus might initially be more just on the two of you.
Okay, and the downside.
They might genuinely struggle to understand the reality of your life. The demands on your time, the fact that your kids are the priority. There could be, like, unintentional jealousy or frustration.
A steeper learning curve for them.
Could be. So the source basically concludes it's not about whether they have kids.
It's more about the person themselves.
Exactly. Emotional intelligence, respect, adaptability, those matter way more than their parental status. Either situation can work if the connection and willingness to understand are there.
That's helpful. It's about the individual, not the category. Now, you mentioned red flags earlier regarding exes. The source talks about other red flags too, right? Not just in partners, but in ourselves.
Yes, this is important. Self-awareness. So, red flags in a partner might be obvious stuff. Clearly disliking kids, being super controlling, jealous of time spent with your children.
Standard dating red flags may be amplified.
Right. But then there are potential red flags in your own behavior as the single parent.
Like what?
Like maybe trauma dumping way too early, constantly comparing every new date to your ex, expecting someone to jump into a co-parenting role immediately.
Ooh, yeah, that's a big ask.
Huge. Or even just feeling like you should be grateful that someone is willing to date you with kids.
That feeling of being somehow less desirable or indebted.
Yeah. It's about recognizing your own patterns and baggage. We all have them.
Good reminder. It's a two-way street. So bringing this all together, what's the final kind of empowering takeaway here?
It's really about reframing the narrative. The source uses this great word. You're not broken or damaged goods because you're a single parent. You're seasoned.
Seasoned. I like that. Like, you've been through stuff, learned things.
Exactly. You've likely developed resilience. You probably have a clearer sense of your values, what you want, what you won't put up with. That's experience. That's strength.
It's shifting from seeing kids as baggage to seeing your experience as, well, valuable life seasoning.
Precisely. It's a much more positive and, frankly, accurate way to look at it.
So what's the final thought the source leaves us with? That kind of provocative idea for people to chew on.
It's this idea, dating as a single parent isn't about finding a rescuer. It's not about finding someone to fill a gap or fix things.
Okay.
It's about finding someone to co-create something new with, something with depth, maturity, and, yeah, the source says, wild, weekend, getaway-worthy affection.
I like that ending. So partnership, not rescue. Building something together with all the experience you bring.
Exactly that. And look, obviously this was a pretty quick flyover, a summary of the big points from our source.
Absolutely. Each one of these areas, the myths, the timing, the X's, the intimacy, could be its own deep dive, really.
For sure.
But hopefully this concise overview gave you a solid grasp of the key things to consider. Maybe something resonated or sparked a question for you to explore further. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.